Christ. It is not a high Renaissance piece, a typical high Renaissance piece. It is at the same time period, the end of the high Renaissance, and it is a piece in Italy, but it is a unique piece of art by Pontormo. Context for it is that the Entombment of Christ was painted between 1525 and 1528. And in 1517, just 8 years earlier, Martin Luther had posted his 95 Theses on the door of the church in Germany, and this launched the Protestant Reformation, which was a time of rethinking about how church should be formed. And so this was a time of change. This was also a time at the end of the High Renaissance where if an artist wanted to think differently than what was going on with, let's say Leonardo da Vinci, they would have to create something unique. And typically it's something that's in response to what had come before them. So Mannerism followed the High Renaissance. And where the Renaissance is all about proportion and balance and ideal beauty, Mannerism is asymmetrical. It's unnatural elegance. There is no real clear form here. Instead, it is something that we don't rest our eye anywhere in particular, but it's beautiful nonetheless. So the form for Mannerism is we have contrasting, amazing color, like wow. So look at the pinks and the blues, the greens and the oranges. And behind Christ here, it shows up here, purples, pink. So some wow color, flattening of space. I know these people are layered here, but there's no background to give us more depth. So we've moved back to more of a flattened scene. And then perspective. Where's our eye supposed to go? Jesus is definitely the most important figure here, but we have a lot of figures whose faces are looking out at different spaces, and so we might want to be looking at them as well. So there's no central piece. And then look at this right here. It's in the center, and it's a spot where there are 4 hands. And we're left to wonder, whose hand is whose? Now, I think we can figure some of it out, but some of it is a little on the awkward side. And it also is a spot where we end up having a void. And perhaps that's the void of loss of Jesus. So here's a comparison for you, just to remind you, where in the Last Supper, we have this linear perspective, 1 point perspective. Here, you wouldn't be able to draw lines to find one exact perspective. So there's constant movement in this piece. More form. There's disproportion of bodies. There's an intentional disproportion of body. I mean, Pontormo could create, high Renaissance art. Maybe he's not a Michelangelo, but he can definitely recreate this art. But he's choosing not to. He's choosing to be different. And so looking here, for example, there is these clashing movements of the human body where there's this movement and at the same time there's this movement. So these arrows are showing us movements that an artist would normally recognize. And probably what shows us, how do you have these kinds of actions going on? Notice that this young man in the front center is on his tippy toes, yet he's holding the weight of Jesus, who is definitely over 100 pounds. So one does not stand on one's tippy toes like this with that kind of weight in this sort of position. It's very unstable. And a comparison here, this is some high Renaissance art. This would be where Jesus is taken down off the cross, which is the image we kind of get here in Entombment of Christ, that Jesus is being taken down, but there is no cross to give us that grounding in action. And so it leaves us wondering, oh, okay, what's happening? Then if he's not being taken down off the cross at this very moment, then is he being put into a tomb? Because that's what would have happened next in the Bible story. And so here, this is Raphael's entombment, and back here is a cave, a tomb where Jesus was going to be placed. And so they're heading toward that, and it gives us context, lets us know, oh yeah, they're heading toward a tomb. But here in the Mannerist piece, there is no exact tomb, and so we're left to wonder if that is the case. So some would suggest, hey, the cross is in the piece, that if you drew a cross like this, several faces, 1, 2, 3, 4 faces exist in this plane, and 4 faces exist in this plane, and that those faces make up a visual cross. There is also the kind of eye line, the vision of where are the characters in this piece looking, where are the people looking, and a lot of their sight goes to the yellow lines show people who are looking at Mary, and then we have 2 people who are looking at Jesus, Mary, and this woman up here. But then we have 3 figures who are looking elsewhere. And what ends up happening is all of these different angles cause us not to look in the form of a cross, but more to look down in this direction. And then finally, faces are more like masks in this art. Mary's face, some critics say, hey, that looks more like a mask than it does a normal human visage. And same here. And this is actually the face here we think of Pontormo, the artist, and he is looking out, but where he is looking, it seems like he's looking toward the viewer, perhaps. So a real different organization of painting. Finally, the function of this piece is that it is placed here in the Capponi Chapel in Florence, Italy, and it's a very small chapel. For tourists to view it, there's a little box on the wall where you put a euro in, and it lights up the light up on the top and lights up the painting here behind. So further function, in this small chapel, both of these are Mannerist pieces, and they show us the beginning and the end of Jesus's life. So here at this altar painting, we have this is Angel Gabriel, and Angel Gabriel is delivering a message to Mary saying, you're going to be the mother of God's child. And so remember, that is the Annunciation, where here we have the Entombment of Christ.